Good evening and welcome to Pakhuis de Zwijger. My name is Thomas van der Zand and this is Tech for Society, our monthly talk show where we discover how technology and innovation impact our open society. And today we're going to talk about the future of food. So imagine being at home on the couch, feeling hungry, and instead of, for example, cooking or ordering food from a nearby restaurant, now you can just push a button and print your own hamburger. Not a 3D object, but real actual product that you can eat. Does it sound convenient? Today we're going to talk about how innovations like 3D food printing actually impact our society and whether they can really make food better or more sustainable or healthier or smarter. And we have four guests here at our table. To my right is Olivier Francescangeli, and next to him is Mona Delagrange. And on my other side, we have Lu Zhang and Richard Bex. Hi. And then we also have somebody in Zoom, Hille. I don't know if you can see or hear me or if we can see you.
Can hear you.
Hi. Maybe we can also, you are on the screen right behind me, but not in front of me. So we'll talk to all of you later, but I'm going to start with our first conversation about vertical farming. And we have somebody who knows all about that. He's the co-founder of Vaversa. That's a company that makes indoor vertical farms the size of a bookcase. And he is also part of Local Leaves Foundation, which is the organizer of the Food YZA Expo. And that expo aims to research how citizens see the future of food. And he has also helped with this evening tonight. Let's give a warm welcome to Olivier Francescangeli. Thank you. Olivier, so let's just first talk about the YZA Expo. Why are you doing that?
Yeah, so thanks for the welcome. Actually, nice to be here. I have two hats tonight, so I'll try to do both. I'm involved in food, and obviously food is a big topic. There's so much happening in sustainability, in technology, in supply chains. Obviously, right now we have all these challenges in relation to food. But I always had the impression that there's not enough awareness. So, in my opinion, as food entrepreneurs, there's always a challenge in educating and creating more tools or more ways for people to have access to more things. And so, on the side of my company, I started a little foundation with some people. And one of the projects is this little pop-up expo where we showcase some of the technologies that are actually being explained here today. But again, the idea is just to create awareness. So we had from students to families to all kinds of people, and it's just about creating conversations.
And why do you think that we need to have those conversations about the innovations that are happening right now?
My personal motivation comes from the sustainability part. I think that we obviously need deep changes in the way we produce, consume, process food. And that starts with conversations. So if you can showcase something and make it interesting for people or showcase something that makes it relevant for them, for their own context, I think then people are able to analyze it better. So that's why we actually made this expo very visible. We have cool machines, cool things that people can see, touch, and feel, and with that they ask the right questions, and with that they get triggered. So, in my opinion, creating a change requires doing stuff, and the expo is just one little way to get that.
Okay, yeah, we'll get back to that, but let's talk about your other hat first. So your company, and also the technology that you've developed, the machine called Mia, which is the small vertical farm, or vertical greenhouse that I talked about. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so the technology that we use is called vertical farming.
And we see it here on the screen.
Yeah, and vertical farming is actually quite simple. It's a principle of growing produce plants indoors in a controlled environment. And so most of the vertical farms in the world are this large warehouse where everything is controlled and it's like a food factory. And the technology exists already for some years, and it's now being developed, and it's becoming more and more mainstream. What we do at Vaversa is that we basically take a little piece of that vertical farm, we package it a little bit differently, and we put it even closer to where the food will be consumed. And in this case, we start it and we focus on professional kitchens. But in a nutshell, it's a controlled environment where most things are automated, so that a chef can grow most greens and high quality produce inside their kitchen.
Okay, and what is the advantage of using this instead of just buying your herbs somewhere else?
Many. There's first of all and foremost, what our clients look at is the quality of the produce. Our food supply chains are logistically complicated, and a lot of the produce that we get, even here in the Netherlands, a food-producing country, come from abroad. If you buy basilicum in December, it's likely that it comes from Morocco, sometimes by plane. And that has a consequence in the quality of the produce, because the more time any sort of produce spends in traveling in the supply chain, the less quality it has. So when you're able to grow something next to your kitchen, and you harvest it 1 minute before it goes into the plate, that has a big effect on quality and taste. It also has the advantage that we give the perfect conditions to plants, so we basically have happy plants that have no stress, and that is also translated into quality. The other reason, let's say maybe the reason why we started the company, is that there's also a sustainability reasoning into that. The moment food travels less and it's not packaged and is growing there, you have less waste, less plastic use, less food miles, so it's also more sustainable at the end of the day.
Okay, and so these are also specific advantages to your innovation, but you already said that vertical farming already exists for a longer time and that it's now kind of settling in. Can you tell us a little bit about the broader technology of vertical farming?
The principle is more or less the same. What changes is the scale, but most vertical farms are also set up in close to cities. So the principle of locally grown, little transport, happy plants, let's say, that grow well, and as little inputs as possible is the same.
Where do we find the best examples of vertical farms?
Well, the most common case that is being spoken about and happening right now is in the Middle East, in countries that cannot produce food because they have no soil or no climate conditions. So you see that in the Middle East, in the United Arab Emirates and Dubai, it's happening a lot, and it's the case of vertical farming there is very clear, because they don't have the conditions to grow it otherwise. And you mostly see it in colder countries where obviously food production is a bit more difficult or there's less technology. But vertical farming is really going everywhere nowadays, because the difference in quality, you cannot grow everything in vertical farming. That's there's a case to that.
So is it mainly vegetables, or can you also grow other things?
So the technology allows you to grow everything. So we've in the lab grown all kinds of vegetables, and you can technology-wise you can grow absolutely everything: potatoes, wheat, corn, everything. But the economics and the business case is a different story. And obviously, vertical farming is quite capital intensive. So it doesn't make sense yet for staple crops or for things that require a lot of volume or a lot of space to grow. So right now, most of the case of vertical farming is still what we call the specialty crops. So the more premium leafy greens and the salads and the stuff that has a lower shelf life, let's say. But the technology in itself allows you to grow all kinds of crops.
And insects, for example?
Yeah, there's also insect farming and vertical farming. There's also mushroom farming. Some of the largest vertical farms in the world are now doing strawberries, tomatoes, so more and more fruits. But yeah, still most of the business case, let's say, is the what we call the leafy greens.
And how many crops a year do you get from a vertical farm?
Well, that's one of the biggest advantages of vertical farming. You have no seasons, so in principle, you get as many as you can, as the crop allows you to get. Just to give you an example, if you are in the Netherlands and you produce lettuce outdoors, you might get 2 or 3 cycles per year. In a vertical farm, you could get up to 15. You have no limitations because of the weather or the season or the soil or anything like that. So in that sense, it's a lot more efficient. The drawback is the use of electricity, and that's
that's what I wanted to talk about, because you talked about the sustainable advantages of growing food near cities, also using nutrients efficiently, light efficiently, all of these things.
Yeah.
But it's still very energy extensive, right?
Yeah, it is, and that's where a lot of the effort is being put into at the moment, especially now. This is not the easiest year for vertical farming.
No.
But a lot of the efforts are being put there, and most vertical farms have become 70-80% now more efficient than when it started a couple years ago. And a lot of vertical farming, the new ones at least, are being built just with green energy. So the big case for vertical farming is being linked to green energy.
Yeah, but also a lot of different uses for green energy, and we're still not, we still don't have the energy transition finished yet. So it's competing for other things. And are there any vertical farms going broke right now because of the energy crisis?
Yeah, there's I think in general, any new maturing industry that, especially that is highly capital intensive, has these cycles of a lot of hype and then let's say settling down. It's no different from vertical farming, but obviously now the energy transition, the energy difficulties are accelerating it. Actually, this week there was a couple of famous cases. So yeah.
Yeah, so. Let's just give us how much energy are we talking about compared to normal farming, just per crop, for example?
Difficult to say, because it really depends on the crop, where it is, what is the equivalent outside. But as a rough estimate, it could be electricity-wise, it could be 40-50% more in the total package. The only thing is that you have to start reducing all the all the alternatives, because it produces more per square meter. There's less transport, so the case is different. It really differs per crop and where you are. But in a nutshell, in comparison to outdoor farming, it is definitely more resource intensive, and electricity is the main one.
Okay. So we're still developing in this field.
Yes.
Let's move on to a different subject. We're slowly moving down the supply chain. So we've now talked about producing food, and we're now going to talk about processing food. Also, I forgot to mention, we're going to talk here at the table for about an hour or so. And then after that, we're going to say, oh, there's a fly coming to me. So after that, we're going to say goodbye to our online audience, and then we've got the chance here with you, our studio audience, and our guests here at the table and in Zoom to have a dialogue together. So please get your questions ready for then. And if you really have a question that can't wait, raise your hand and then we'll come to you. But for now, I would like to introduce my next guest, and she's an assistant professor at Wageningen University on additive food assembly, which is, I would say, food printing. Yes.
Yeah, correct.
Correct. And she and her team conduct research on the advance of food printing technology for the personalization of healthy and tasty foods. Give it up for Lu Zhang.
Yeah.
So can you explain us a little bit about the technology of food printing.
Yes. So basically, we are building up things using the additive manufacturing way to construct your food using certain digital design. So you can, for example, stacking 2D layers of your food material into a 3D shape. So you can also program the shape in a way that you can have certain complex geometry inside. And the most common printing technique we're using and studying is called extrusion-based printing. So basically, you put your food paste into a syringe, and you can extrude it into certain shape by using a robotic system. That's the most common way to print food.
I think we've got a short clip of printing cheese, right?
Yeah, printing processed cheese in our lab.
Printing processed cheese. Can we show that? So what's happening here?
Now it's stuck. Now it's moving. Yeah. Yeah, so basically this whole syringe is heated to melt the cheese, melt the processed cheese, and then when it's being extruded out into this platform, and the cheese will cool down and it will solidify into a stable shape.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you're also using other materials such as speculaas.
Speculaas, yeah.
Other things as well?
Yeah, or chocolate. We also use that. Marzipan as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But something that is more like liquid when you print it, and then it can harden out.
Yeah, that's one category of material that you have to first increase the temperature of the material. Then you can cool it down afterwards. It will solidify. Or another type of material is cookie dough. We also develop in the lab, or some other protein-rich ingredients. Then you can just extrude it as such, so you don't have to increase the temperature. It will just, because of the material property, it can be extruded.
Yeah, and what are some of the benefits that might be involved in this process?
Yeah, actually, I have this little illustration to show that there's
Can
possibilities.
We show that as well?
Actually, not this one, the other one. Yeah, exactly. So we can use this technology to customize the design, the appearance of your food. You can make it, like a cylinder or a cubic, or you can, for example, change the infill design. And there are certain study already show that by changing the infill design, you can change the texture of your food. For example, after baking of the cookie dough with different porosity, you can get different sensation, different kind of mechanical property. And the third one is...
you get a whole new kind of food, actually.
Yeah, you can use this technology to influence how people perceive their food. And then maybe in a way it can help people to make a healthy choice to eat less. Because for certain type of food, you need to chew more and you need to process it more in your mouth before you can swallow. Then maybe that's a way to reduce food intake. Yeah.
Okay. And why would you actually want to change the geometry of the food? Do you have an example?
Yes. For example, we use. In another study, we incorporated lactic acid bacteria, so kind of probiotics inside this cookie. And because of the increase of the surface to volume ratio, to increase the porosity of the cookie, you can make the bacteria survive better. So this is certain things that cannot be easily achieved by using molding. For example, you need to cast many different kinds of mold in order to create a certain structure. So 3D printing, in a way, it's very you can easily customize your geometry. Of course, you want to create different appearance or create different sensory perception.
So you're already moving to maybe health benefits as well.
Yeah.
Do you have other health benefits that might be gotten from food printing?
Yeah, so the third picture, if we can show it again, with this, not this one, the other one, yeah. So we can also use, now we're talking about one food material in one syringe. You can also have certain different food ingredients in multiple syringe. And then by spatially distributing certain ingredients in the geometry, for example, sugar-rich ingredients or salt-rich ingredients, you can create a matrix of food that contain locally certain like flavor. And then maybe in the end, you consume less sugar, but you still get the same sensation of sweetness. So that's a way.
So you can play with the actual nutrients in the food.
Yeah, that's one promise. Yeah,
That's the promise. But, yeah.
Yeah.
So where are we at right now, and what's currently the most researched field in 3D printing?
Yeah, then we can show the other letter.
Now we can show the
Yeah.
one that we tried earlier.
Yeah, so there's loads of scientific publication or research going on in the field of 3D printing, or there is even 4D printing now, but we are still more focusing on the first stage to develop what can be printed, what can we print.
But sorry, I have to ask this: what is 4D printing?
Okay, so if you remember in the other illustration, if we have certain additive, for example, antioxidants or certain colorants that can react to heat or react to pH change, when you print it, you have already a color. But if you post-treat it with, for example, acid or some heat treatment, you can induce a kind of change. So there's another property can be changed a long time. So that's called the other dimension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you already get something that can be changed in time.
Yeah. And also another example is because of the material's property, when you, they might have different swallowing behavior. When you boil it, then you can put something flat in hot water, and when it reacts to the hot water, it will fold up. So that's also a kind of shape change. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So getting back to the research that's done right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So most of the research is focusing on developing food formulations that can be printed. This requires colloidal science and also there are certain mechanical engineering perspective into it, like we design a new food printer or design a device that can print food. And we put in the second stage that we want to develop further the actual products, like the sugar reduction or salt reduction product, or some maybe meat analog. So some material or some product can only be produced by using 3D printing. So there's a clear advantage of using this technology. And the third stage, that's what we are aiming for, or what our promise is located, is personalized nutrition. We can create certain food that has certain texture or nutrient, especially for customers or consumers that have certain difficulties, like people who have swallowing difficulty. They cannot consume regular food, but we still want them to have a good quality of life. Then maybe this technology can also help them. Yeah.
So very personalized food.
Yeah, personalized, customized food. Yeah.
Okay, and so you're working in Wageningen right now.
Yeah.
You did your master's when you were in China.
Yes.
What's the place to be now for this technology?
What's a place to be?
The place to be. Where is it happening?
I think it's happened globally.
Globally?
Yeah, I know in China, in many cities, they are placing, for example, chocolate printers in shopping mall or in museum to ask people to create their own structure. And in Netherlands, in Europe, we also have companies producing 3D printed seafood or 3D printed meat analog. And of course, in US, there are also probably something going on. I think it's happening everywhere.
It's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. And so let's get back to you, Olivier, because at the expo, you also are working with food printing. I think we see something right now that's happening there. Why do you think that this is an important technology for the future?
Well, I'm not the expert here, but I think in the expo what we want to showcase is things that are potentially relevant for consumers, and that's actually the question that I would have for you, is because we think that what you mentioned, the promise of personalized nutrition, is something that will happen. I have the question on when do you think, but I think 3D printing has the potential of customization. That's from my less scientific perspective. That's how I see it. So the idea of customization can be from different angles. Can be health, can be taste, can be anything. But I saw a video, and that's actually something we show in the expo. It's a video where there's actually a restaurant in Japan where you send a DNA sample a couple of weeks before you go into the restaurant, and they create a personalized meal for you depending on your needs. This is something that some people are shocked by or not, but it has potential benefits, and I think it will happen in a certain way.
What do they change in their meals?
I get if you have too much sugars in your blood, then your meal might have less sugars. If you're lacking vitamin A, they might add a component that helps you with your vitamin A. So it's this idea of balancing out, and the ultimate promise, and that's actually what we're trying to trigger in the expo, is that you might have a device, maybe a wearable, a watch, that is constantly measuring your vitals, and if that somehow is connected to your printer, then you could get some personalized meals. How far are we from that? That would be my question.
Okay, so the question, how far are we from that?
Yeah, that's a very good vision, I think.
Far is the translation, yeah.
Yeah, because now the research is more focusing on to prove this technology can make impact in people's eating behavior or the texture or the sensation on food. And personalized nutrition, I think we are still lacking a lot of consumer insights, like to really get consumer be involved in this process, in this innovation. But I think there's certain transition now. We're more looking towards consumer. Oh, do you like this shape? Is it good enough for you? Or do you actually taste difference? So this kind of study is more and more emerging. So then in future, we can link to nutritionists and see, okay, can we customize food based on their personal data? But now it's still focusing on this part, like the oral processing, not really in the absorption and nutrition digestion yet.
Yeah, and so in my introduction, I mentioned like 3D food printing at home. How realistic is that?
Yeah, actually, as far as I know, there are also companies producing device that can print certain shape of, for example, cookie and bake it. So it's like a microwave kind of device you can put in your kitchen. You can entertain your guests with it, or you can make your child eat more healthy with vegetable paste or something. But there's no commercial device that can do this yet. I know that there's a commercial printer that can print chocolate, but they're more oriented for restaurants, not really for home use. Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting, and very interesting things happening, but still we're a long way from really having something that we can eat from the printer.
Yeah, there's still room for development to improve the speed, printing speed, and the power of the printer. Yeah.
That actually, just to add on this, at the expo we had a couple of people when they saw the 3D printer that said that they actually got one. I think the chocolate one. To fill it up with veggies in the shape of a dinosaur so that their kids would eat more veggies. And it worked. So maybe that's the first application.
So they printed veggies instead of chocolate from the chocolate printer.
Yeah, they printed the chocolate.
And it was not a disappointment for their children.
Apparently they ate it completely. They didn't know it was a carrot puree or something like that. So
somebody from the audience. It's not working for... So... Very nice. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next phase or the next part of the supply chain. And we're going to talk about alternative ingredients or making something alternative for something that already exists. And we've got Mona Delagrange here. You are the founder at Nomad, and you are working on seaweed croquettes. And then in the Zoom, we have Hille van der K from those vegan cowboys. Hi.
Good evening.
Hi, and you are working on vegan milk and cheese, and you're actually using fungus strains for that, fungus strains, I should say, and then you use fungus to produce milk proteins, and you want to produce it more efficient than the strains that you have right now, and you actually issued a bounty for who can find the right fungus. So how much can people earn when they get the right fungus to you?
2.5 million.
2.5 million. This is serious stuff.
Yes, it's very serious stuff. But I have to say the bounty hunt, we had it last year when we were still at the beginning of our research. Now we speed up our own research, and we already found some very good organisms. So the bounty hunt, if we still give it away, then someone must bring a perfect fungus.
Must bring something to the table. So why is this perfect fungus so important? Can you? I think there's also a picture of this or schematics for this.
Yes. So what we do is we make casein without a cow, or we actually use a stainless steel cow to make casein. And casein is one of the most important proteins to give cheese the right flavor. So if you eat the vegan cheese, which is on the market right now, you can still taste a difference with the real stuff. But if we bring our casein to the table, we can make every cheese just as you know it right now. So we can make the pecorino, we can make a blue Stilton, we can make the Dutch hard cheeses, which are exactly the same as the old ones.
So it's very different from the cheese or the milk that is made from nuts or from soy or any plant-based alternatives.
Yes, they are actually quite good, but they are alternatives, and we are aiming at the real stuff, but then without the use of a cow.
Okay, so and the hunt for the good strain of fungus is going well, you say. So the role of the fungus in this process is actually making the casein.
Yes, it's we use it to transform grass into protein in the end, because we use grass as a starting point.
So the grass goes in, and then the cheese comes out, without the cow in between.
Well, the grass goes into the stainless steel cow, and then the casein comes out, and then you can take the casein and make the cheeses just like we are used to do it right now.
And what are the difficulties that you're encountering right now?
Well, we already can make some very tiny cheeses, so we know that the process works. But what we need to do right now is to scale up our very little cheeses to the big ones, and in the end to industrial measures.
So when do you think you will be successful in the coming years?
Well, we are aiming at 2026.
2026 for a product on the market.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So let's go to the other product that we're talking about at Nomad, and you are making seaweed croquettes. How are they made?
Yeah, a little different. Actually, we try to really showcase seaweed as it is. So we really make use of the whole seaweed plant, and besides that, also add like whole foods plant ingredients. So we really try to put the spotlight back on this group of ingredients, which has been or is still a rather novel ingredient in the Western world.
So why seaweed? Why are you so enthusiastic about it?
Yeah, so seaweed can really be a force of good for many reasons. Basically, for us, because it's highly nutritious. That's one thing. It's rich. It can be a protein source as well. It's rich in micro nutrients such as iron, calcium, even, and especially iodine. It's good for animals actually as well. If you switch from animal proteins to plant-based proteins, so in that way, it's really about reducing the strain on our marine environment nowadays, because we have actually 90% of our current fish stocks are overfished or maximally fished, which means that in a world where there's more and more people on this planet, we need to turn to other plant-based sources or marine components, basically.
Yeah.
And at the same time, actually growing seaweed is also good for the marine environment, because it basically balances out the more, our oceans have become quite acidic because of actually the absorption of CO2. And cultivating seaweed actually brings back oxygen to the marine environment. So actually locally, it also is a force for good in that way.
Yeah, and
they're very tasty.
And they're very tasty. And
not,
your croquette is
to forget.
actually an alternative for shrimp croquettes, right? It was developed as...
Yeah, exactly. That's how it started. In Belgium, we have quite a, it's quite a cultural thing to have shrimp croquettes. So actually, where I grew up near the seasides, that's how it started. I was looking for a plant-based alternative, really, but I thought, let's not actually go for an imitation shrimp croquette, but really try to put the spotlight on seaweed as it is, and really show people how tasty and versatile it can be.
Yeah, so that's a little bit different from the dairy that we were just talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you think of each other's products? Can we... what do you think about the perspective from the other?
Yeah. I fully support all of the other technologies, of course, and at the same time, the plant-based imitation foods. I think there's definitely also a market for it, and I fully support that. I think it is at the same time also worth looking at more forgotten ingredients or alternative protein sources that are out there, but maybe people are not fully aware, or they are not sure yet how to use them, such as seaweed.
Yeah. And Hille?
Sorry?
Hille, how do you look at this product of the seaweed croquettes and compare it to your own product?
I would love to taste it.
Yeah, me too. I'm actually
craving
for it right now.
To have all the things that you said, like we kind of make a new croquette, and that's a very good thing. We try to do it to make a product which is really identical, because we believe like for milk you can have an alternative with nuts, but for cheese it's really difficult to make an alternative which is just as tasteful as cheeses, because people know the taste. But if you can come up with a new croquette with this, which is even more delicious than one with animals, then you have a very good case, I guess.
Yeah, so it might be good to know, Hille, that the background of your company, those vegan cowboys, is actually some of the same people are involved as in the vegetarische slager, so the vegetarian butcher. Are you looking actually to replace the normal dairy and cheeses, or are you looking to offer an alternative? What is your main focus? And I would like to ask the same to you as well.
For us, it's definitely to replace it, because we offer a far more sustainable and animal-friendly product. So there is no reason to keep on eating animal cheese.
Okay, very clear. And is it the same for you?
yeah, I think I would like to the products at Nomad to be as tasty or tastier, so that consumers actually prefer this over the other thing. So and at the same time actually realize why they would prefer it.
So how would you say, is this commercially an advantage to try and replace something that is already so well known, or is it a disadvantage?
Goh, it will be well. It actually it's our target group is not limited to, let's say, vegans, vegetarians in that way, because it's a new product as such. So more people might be interested to try it, which is definitely an advantage. And then it's up to the people to actually decide whether it will be because of excellent taste or actually because of the benefits it can bring.
Yeah. And Hille, what do you think about this?
Well, if you can choose between a cheese for which you need 10 liters of milk and 5,000 liters of water and 100 square meters of land, or you can choose for the same cheese, but you only need 1/5 of all the ingredients for that, and you can leave the cow out of the process. So there's also no issue with CO2 or animal welfare that the cow needs to go to the slaughterhouse after 4 or 5 years. Well, I think it's quite clear what you would like to choose if the product is still the same, and in the end also which one will be cheaper. In the end, we will also offer a cheaper alternative for the dairy as we know it right now.
Yeah, and you can also, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, but you can also choose not to eat cheese. Like people don't eat meat. So why is it important to have those replacement products and not change our diets?
Because, well, people love cheese. Even vegans love cheese. It's the hardest thing to give up for a vegan. So we can say don't eat cheese, but it will not happen. So that was also the vision of the vegetarian butcher. Like people love meat. People are addicted to meat, and of course there are people who don't like meat. I'm a vegetarian since I was 8, so I don't need the taste of meat, but others need the taste of meat, and then it's good to have an alternative for them as well. And then you will make the biggest impact in the end.
Okay, so thank you very much for now. I'm going to ask all of you where you hope to be in about 5 to 10 years from now. So maybe you can already think about that. What's your place to be, or your what would be ideal to be in 5 years from now? But for now, I'm going to move on to Richard Becks, co-founder of Orbisk. And you are working on tackling food waste, especially in restaurants. And can you tell us a little bit about Orbisk?
Yeah, of course. We're a startup. Oh, you see our product here. We're a Dutch startup founded 3.5 years ago, beginning of 2019. And we tackle food waste in the hospitality industry. So indeed, focusing on restaurants, corporate catering, and hotels. Mostly because we were hearing a lot of very nice product developments, but actually 1/3 of all the food that is produced goes to waste. Food that is indeed a cow was milked for it, a cow was slaughtered for the meat, it was transported, a chef was really busy preparing the food, and then at the end it goes to waste. And that goes for 1/3 of all the food produced in the world, and that's of course
1/3 of all the food produced in the world is thrown away and not consumed.
Yeah.
And is it mostly thrown away in shops, or at retail level, or at consumer level, or at restaurant level, or maybe in the production?
Yeah, good question. Most food is being thrown away by ourselves at home. That's still the biggest part. That's of course a difficult or a more difficult thing to address. It's a more cultural thing. It's more about awareness and raising the question how we if you have leftovers on a Friday in your fridge, then still a lot of people choose to order a pizza because they have an appetite for pizza.
They don't feel like
They don't
eating
feel like
leftovers.
cooking the leftovers. So that's a whole different thing to address than we do.
But you have some. So I would like to go back to your product because you have something of an intelligent bin.
Yeah, so we need what you see here on the picture is our piece of hardware we use to capture the information we need to help the chef to reduce food waste. So what you see here is a scale connected to a smart camera module above the waste bin. And every time food is being thrown away into this waste bin, we take a picture. And with this picture, we use image recognition technology, which you see here, to identify the food that is thrown away. We know the weight because there's a scale below it. We know a little bit about the density of specific products. So we do this the whole full day automatically. And we give the chef insights into what kind of food goes to waste, when, where, how much, of course, and a little bit about the reason why. Because we can also identify if the food is on a plate, for example, so it's plate waste coming back from the guest, or it's on the platter from the buffet, coming back from the buffet, or from the kitchen. So actual food that has never been put on the plate of the guest.
So it's all about giving information back to the user in order so that they might reduce their food waste.
Yeah, might, will.
Because you already have some pretty big customers using it, right?
Yeah. We're of course we were hit by Corona quite heavily. So since February this year, we're finally fully operational again. We're now active in about 150 sites. We'll end the year at about 200. And most of the big chains in the Netherlands are our clients. So the big hotels, Novotel, Van der Valk, Laplace, all the bigger chains are testing it or scaling it currently, because it's not only this is not only for sustainability, of course, a big plus.
Can you move a little bit more to the microphone? Yeah, or move the microphone a little bit to you.
It's not only a big plus, of course, for sustainability, but the biggest upside is that all the food you don't throw away into the waste bin, you don't need to buy at the first step. So the chef has a process. Based on his menu, he will buy certain ingredients. He will prepare his menu for his guests. He is expecting an X amount of guests, and he is expecting that they would like X amount of food. But that is never the case. And that final step in that process, the food waste, will give the chef the information he needs to optimize all of those steps before. So sometimes his menu is not optimal because he can see that some products are being thrown away always, or coming back from the plate. Sometimes he just sees that he can buy less of certain food. So everything he don't throws away is an actual cost saver.
Yeah, and you say they will change their behavior because you've seen that with the restaurants that are using it right now.
Yeah, and there's a lot of research also about this topic. I mean, we automate the insights part for a chef because we're talking about high volume locations. But there are a lot of locations or companies doing this manually, or did this manually for years. So just with an Excel sheet, writing down every time you throw something away and using that information to optimize your process. But that's way too much time consuming, especially in high volumes locations. There's a big staff shortage. We optimize that process, but also we attach all of those data sources I just touched upon. So like buying figures, guest amounts, weather data to work towards a predictive model. And that's what we're testing currently with some clients. So we get all of those data points from them, and we tell them, for example, on the breakfast buffet, we tell them how much croissants they need to bake the next day in order for them to still have all the guests satisfied with the fact that there are croissants on the breakfast buffet. But they don't have any waste, because food is a emotional thing. A chef is a person, and he's emotional, and he never wants a guest to
feel wanted. Yeah. So I can see why you're using this with hotels and restaurants, but is there also a consumer application to this? Because you say that consumers are the main wasters of food.
Yeah, yeah, true. Yeah, this is too expensive for to put in every kitchen still. But that's a dream of us, of course. I mean, we're really focusing on making an impact globally. So we want to make this product as cheap as possible. That comes with skill, of course. The more locations we have active, the better the price can be. But also making the products cheaper and eventually also maybe for people at home. But like I mentioned, it's more of an awareness thing than an insights thing. I think most people here know because they throw away food once a week, they see what they throw away. What might be a good application for this, and some producers are doing it already, is giving insights on what is in your fridge at the moment that you're in the supermarket. That you can see, hey, I
Like
have
the
200
smart
grams.
fridges.
Yeah, you have 200 grams of zucchinis left. So yeah.
So you're actually nodding your head. Do you think this is something that we might continue on this road to informing customers about how much food they should buy or use? Or
Yeah, I just think this image recognition technology is very useful. It can also be used for many other applications, not only for waste monitoring or to look at people's eating behavior, what kind of food they take, or maybe certain food is very popular. They can just, the chef or somebody can easily monitor it. So this technology behind is very cool.
Yeah.
and there's also a link, I think, to food waste and 3D printing, because you can use food waste to 3D print new food, right?
Yeah, that's also one of the research has been done on the food printing using, for example, wasted like ugly vegetables or ugly fruits.
Oh, ugly vegetables.
Yeah, they're
Okay,
still edible, but they're not bought by the consumer because maybe the shape is not optimal. But you can still process them into certain nice product. Actually, there's Dutch company doing this, but we have to make sure everything is safe. Hygiene is very important. Also, we don't want to have contamination in the production.
So you're giving ugly vegetables a facelift.
Yes, to give them a second life.
Okay,
Yeah.
so is this technology that we would like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, actually, one of the applications that I see for consumers at home, hopefully in the future we have smart monitors. I'd love to have one. But one of the things that already exists is, for example, apps that help you manage your fridge. So if you scan everything that you buy into this app, it will tell you when the expiration dates are, and it will maybe even suggest recipes that you can do with your ingredients. So we have already applications of, maybe this is like a beginning of AI in order to help you tackle food waste. So I can imagine that we're not that far away from applications of how to process your food differently. And if there's a food 3D printer where you can put your almost expired veggies and make a nice dinosaur shape carrot puree, then why not?
Okay, so in the beginning you said that one of your hats is to give information and also make people aware of what's going on. Do you think that we're doing all right in making people aware with this program? Is there something you want to add to what we have been saying?
No, maybe the thing is, some people ask, where is your motivation in food and technology? And I always say it's a triangle, because it also, in my opinion, technology facilitates also sustainability. That's something that maybe we haven't touched so much upon, but by reducing food waste in professional kitchens, you're generally reducing food waste. By making maybe things more accessible or more edible for people, you're giving them another way to process or consume food. By utilizing alternative ingredients, we're actually having a sustainable impact. The same in vertical farming. So, I don't have anything to add other than I think that all of these technologies have an impact on sustainability, and at least that's my ultimate motivation.
So sometimes technologies are not used for what they're originally intended to be used for, and people just get lazier.
Yeah.
Do you see that problem?
Absolutely, and I think that's actually a heavy problem in food. We have a convenience versus maybe sustainability debate or antagonism, because a lot of the maybe investments or energy in people working into food goes into making a banana more available quicker, where that's not always more sustainable. So that's why I think the awareness and the talks are important. These kind of conversations are important, is because in order to make the right choices and prioritize, we need to be aware of what is happening, and that's a big problem in food, in my opinion.
So, what are the technologies and innovations that you are that you would like to prioritize, and in which way?
I mean, the food supply chain is huge, right? So we've had some topics here, and there's a lot more. Food is the biggest industry in the world. 40% of the population work in food. So there's just so much to do that I don't have an answer out of my head. I think that it's maybe a bit repetitive, but I think my own vision on it is that we need to make the choices of where our priorities are in what we develop, because technology has the potential. In my opinion, we will have more nature-based solutions in the future and more tech-based solutions in the future. They're not antagonic to each other, but how we use them is the most important. So putting the right efforts, using technology for the right purposes is for me the key, and that's, I think, what everybody at this table is doing.
Yes.
But that's not always the case.
So, and I promise to, at the end of this program, before we close for everybody watching online, I would ask all of you where you hope to be in 5 years. What's your perfect place where you are in 5 years? But then let's add this to the question. So, what choices do you think you need to make as well? So maybe you can start.
Tough question. Yeah, so personally, I hope that there's more tech in food. At the end of the day, that's on a global, because I believe in the potential of technology to make things better, more sustainable, and so on. Personally, I hope that vertical farming is further away and that we have less of energy problems, but that the adoption is higher in general. And I think that's my ultimate thing, is that I think we need to be more open to technologies in food. We need to adopt the right things, and I hope that, globally we are there. There's more happening with food sustainability and food tech, and hopefully it's in the right direction.
And with Vaversa?
Yeah, with Vaversa, we want to have a global impact. So a little bit like Orbis, we want to be in. We're already working with some big chains. We want to be international. We want to be further. At the end of the day, we need the scale to have the impact that we want to have. So I hope we can scale it up.
Okay. So and let's move to Hille. Where do you hope to be in 5 years, and what do you think are your critical choices that you should make with your company?
So personally, I hope to eat pepperoni cheese again within 5 years. So, but and on the other hand, I hope we convinced quite some farmers to replace the living cows by our stainless steel cow Margaret, because in the end, then we make the real impact.
So you actually place the stainless steel cows at farms.
Well, I guess it will not be on the farm, but you can see maybe a cooperation of farmers can bring the grass to our stainless steel cow Margaret, just like they do right now. They bring it to the stable or to the factory where the cows are.
Yeah.
So.
And in 5 years, it's actually 2026. So that's going to be your first product, right?
Yes.
All right, we're looking forward to it. And then moving here to the table, Mona.
In 5 years from now, I hope algae and seaweeds can be actually recognized as something tasty and that it's more normalized in Europe. That's the first, and I hope that with Nomad and maybe the seaweed croquettes can actually contribute to that. And I think also on a personal level, switching more towards plant-based in general is part of the goal. Yeah.
Yeah. And Richard?
Yeah, well, one of the sustainable development goals is to halve food waste by 2030. And we are able to do that with our clients. So we hope to be, in 5 years, be one of the leading authorities to do so globally. And to cut back food waste to the minimum as possible. And to use that food to help people who are in need of food now, instead of us here.
Yeah. And Lou, the last words are for you.
Yes, I hope in 5 years the technology or the things we're developing in the lab can push this field, 3D printing, forward by improving the speed or make this process smarter. So we don't have to tune our food material in order to print it, but we can take into account the complexity of the food we have or the complexity of the ingredients we have. So the machine can adapt to the ingredients, not the other way around. Actually, we're also developing some image-based analysis and process control. Now, hopefully, in future, we can create the personalized food we want, and then, in the end, can bring it to the consumer so they can benefit from it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much to our speakers, to everybody here in the studio as an audience. And if you want to come to the studio next time, please have a look at the agenda of Pakhuis de Zwijger. We're doing this Tech for Society once a month, but we also have a lot of great other different shows. And if you want to become a friend of Pakhuis de Zwijger, there's a QR code that you can scan, and then you pay a little contribution, because all of our programs are for free online and here, but you can support us by scanning the QR code. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.